Welcome, Christian Metal Group. My name is Jimmy Sarles. I'm one of the admins in the Christian Metal Group, and we have Jay.
I'm one of the moderators. Hello.
Yes, sir. All right, and Christopher and Sean, you're with the Kingdomcore podcast, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So Sean, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about just who you are, where you're located, and then we'll go to Christopher.
Yeah, my name's Sean Ely, and I am the founder and runner, I guess runner, I don't know if that's the word, but founder and operator of Kingdomcore on Instagram and Facebook, and I am located in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Nice. Cool.
So hey, my name's Chris. I'm from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, and I am the podcast editor for Kingdomcore. And I also run For the Rock as well. YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. Yeah.
What exactly is For the Rock?
For the Rock is the mini Kingdomcore.
Nice.
No, we try to separate.
It's Kingdomcore with better graphic design.
Yeah. I try to differentiate it how I can, but we do some reaction videos on YouTube. And then as far as Instagram goes, it's similar, but I like to try and focus primarily on like a visual style and like cover art and stuff. Like that's my jam. So definitely try to not copy Sean as much as I possibly can.
So Chris, are you here representing all the people in Canada who love Jesus and proving that they are there?
Yes.
Awesome.
I guess I can say I'm doing that.
There's not many of them, but
I mean, actually, there was a survey that came out that my city, I don't know, it was 5 years ago or so, is apparently the least churched in all of Canada.
Oh man!
Wow.
But there's a lot of churches here, so I don't know. It's hard to reconcile
that. A lot of opportunity there. Yeah. Well, Sean, let's kick us off with Kingdomcore. Where did the idea come from? What's the history? How did it get started?
Yeah. So I love telling this story. It's pretty, I think it's interesting. So I never had a ton of friends who were like into metal. I was like that weird kid in every youth group had that one kid that was into like Christian rock and Christian metal and just didn't fit in, just solely based upon that. And so I was that kid in my youth group. I always dealt with like the people who either just didn't get it or who said that, you can't glorify God through this medium of music. But for whatever reason, rap was okay. So it's like there's that double standard there, But anyway,
it doesn't sound like demons.
No, yeah, exactly. And so I don't know, like it's really funny because I didn't have, usually whenever I do like things that require a lot of time and energy, I usually think about them for a bit. But it was just like one night I was hanging out in my room. This was February of 2018. So I was 21 years old. Was I 21? Yeah, I think I was like 21 then, 22. And I was just like, you know what? It'd be cool if there was something on Instagram like that was like the place for Christian metal. At the time, I couldn't really find anything that was Christian metal related. I remember when I first got into the scene on Facebook, there's a page called Christian Metal Kingdom. You guys may have seen it. And that page was a huge help to me when I first got into the scene, but it had gone pretty much inactive around the time that I found it. So I just scrolled through years and years of content, just finding every little tiny band that I could, whether they were still together or like broken up or not. And so that helped me a lot when I first got in the scene back in 2015-ish. And so here comes 2018, and I'm like, I would like that on Instagram. I think that'd be cool. And I'd like to just meet some people, maybe make some virtual friends, who like this style of music. So that night I created a Christian metal fan group, and it actually did not go by the name of Kingdomcore. It was called Aggressive Worshipers. If you guys are familiar with the band Convictions, they go by the title Aggressive Worship. And I was huge, still I'm a huge Convictions fan. So I wanted to make it like recognizable to Christian metal fans that it's a Christian metal like fan group. So that's why I did that, and I thought it would be cool for like everyone who follows it could be considered like an aggressive worshiper, you know? And so I went ahead and I made that page. I put my first post up. I still remember it was just like an album review I did of Death Grip by Fit for a King, one of my all-time favorite metalcore records. And so yeah, I did that because I thought it would be fun to write reviews. I've always enjoyed writing creatively. So I did that, and I woke up and I followed like a bunch of people. And next morning I woke up, I think like 100 or 200 followers. And I'm like, okay, like that's pretty cool. Maybe I wonder if this will stagnate there or not. And I just kept posting, and more followers would come. I'd follow people back to try to remain like a community, you know? And so that just continued happening until when a few weeks later I got to go to the first Christian metal show that I had gone to since I had started the page, and that was War of Ages on their Alpha tour. And lo and behold, Convictions was opening, right? And so I got to meet Convictions, and I was like, hey guys, I don't know if you've seen this page, but I'm running it. And they're like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. Like we're so behind you. We're so humbled that you that you wanted to like use that. Like we're honored, you know. And so from there I started getting some bands who were like backing it, because at the time there really was nothing like it on Instagram. So then all that long story or long way of saying, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So after about a year and a half, I think I was at around 7,000 followers. I was talking to Convictions, and they really believed in it more than I did. And they basically said, Sean, like, we see this as something that maybe you should branch off from us and like rebrand yourself. Because from like a business perspective, it was a smart move for us both, because like they didn't want me to be associated with them, and they didn't want them to be associated with me, you know, because it just there comes a point when the platform gets big enough to where it needs to be its own entity, you know. And so they encouraged me to go that direction, and I totally understood it. But I was a little lost with what I would call it, and if a rebrand would lose all the momentum I had. So they were really supportive, really helpful along the way. And then just one day I was spitballing names, and I threw out the name Kingdomcore. That just came to my mind. And I'm like, you know what? I like that. That sounds good. Nice. And so lo and behold, I changed it. I went through that change. And yeah, that's where we are today.
And weren't they the ones that were just like, that's it? Like,
that's right. I was on the phone with Josh, who at the time was the guitarist of Convictions, and I threw that out because we were just throwing out names together. And he's like, nope, that's it. And I'm like, really? He's like, yep, that's it. And I'm like, all right.
Actually, I saw Convictions open up for War of Ages. I assume I don't know if it was the same tour, but
yeah,
I think Earthgroans was actually opening.
Yeah. That was the tour.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I saw the tour. Awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun night.
All right, Jay.
All right, cool. So what actually got you all into metal? Like, when did you first fall in love with metal? And then also, dang, see, look at that. I got a two-part question. When did you fall in love with Christ? How did that happen? Like, so both of those, Christ and metal.
Chris, you wanna
okay,
go first?
You want me to go?
Okay. Yeah.
So let's see. I'll start with becoming a follower of Christ. I grew up in a Christian home. Went to a Christian school growing up as well, but it was probably, I think initially it was around when I was 5 years old, was like the initial like, hey, my grandma pulled me aside, and you know, she would always look after us, and she was the one who was very much like praying with us all the time and encouraging in that. So that was kind of when I would say it really started. Like, I never veered off the rails in any way since I was like born, really. But not to say I'm perfect by any means whatsoever.
Chris is perfect.
No. Yeah. But when I was a teenager in high school, so I think it was 2008, early 2008, I went to a big youth conference called History Makers. in 2008, and that was my first ever concert in any form whatsoever. I got to see Manifest live.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
yeah, so it was in just like a small arena, and I was with my youth group, and that was my first ever trip or doing anything away from my parents. I was with my brother and our friends and stuff, but there was just something in that moment. Like they did kind of like a, hey, like all you youth groups that are here, like whoever else, if you're alone, like find a group, like huddle together, let's pray for each other, do all that kind of stuff. And it was in that moment that I like truly gave my heart to the Lord, like as my own decision. And where I was like, okay, this is real, this is what I believe. And so yeah, ever since then, that was, I guess, 16 years ago, around that. And as far as getting into metal music in general, 2007 I got into rock. Like before that, I didn't really care for music all that much. I had an MP3 player. I think I had like 200 or 300 songs that were random one-offs in the early days of YouTube, and I would rip a file like Linkin Park, or it was just like singles literally. And 2007 rolls along, and somebody introduced me to Reliant K, and
Nice.
I was like, oh, there's like good Christian music that's like not just church music. Like I was just always so bored at church growing up. And yeah, so it started with Reliant K, and then I don't know, a month later, so I used to play RuneScape all the time, and somebody introduced me on that. They weren't even Christian. They were just like, oh, yeah, you might like these bands, Skillet and Red.
The hardest thing
And
out there, right?
yeah,
Right.
and I got into them as well as Thousand Foot Crutch around the same time. And so it started with those 4 bands, I'd say. And in my youth group, I had a friend. This was kind of nearing like 2009. I was purely into rock. I had heard a little bit of metal, didn't like the screaming. He's like, hey, check out this song. And it was Blue 42 by Haste Today.
Okay.
And I was like, this is terrible. I don't like this. And I don't know, a little bit after that, my brother had downloaded Frets on Fire. It was like a Guitar Hero rip-off game for the computer. And so you play with the keyboard instead. And we just downloaded random music, and I had Truth of a Liar by August Burns Red. And I just remembered I didn't really like listening to the music, but I liked playing it. Like in the game, I was like, this is really fun to play. So I just did it over and over and over again. I was like, wait a minute, I think I kind of like this. So then I looked up Haste the Day again, listened to their music. And yeah, this was end of 2009, beginning of 2010. All of a sudden I was like switched over. I barely listened to rock. I became a metalhead. And then by 2015 or so, I kind of mellowed out, and I'm like, oh, I love all this classic rock stuff. And I've branched out. Like I can listen to pretty much any genre of music, but primarily still rock and metal is what I'm all about. So
I was really waiting for the 1,000-Foot Crutch, but I didn't hear that one coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they were really early on with that Skillet and Red, and Rock Fist did it for me back then.
Throw up your rock fist if you feel it.
Oh, actually, I think I got into 1,000-Foot Crutch from Manifest's song Impossible. I remember hearing that. I was into Manifest at the time, and then that song introduced
I know that. Yeah, I know there was a connection there.
Yeah.
What's the other Canadian band, the pop punk band that's connected? He grew
up.
Hawk
Nelson.
Hawk Nelson.
Yeah. No, I used to listen to Hawk Nelson a lot.
I listened to an interview with him, with the lead singer. He actually
the labeled interview.
The labeled interview recently.
Yeah, I think so.
That was
where
good.
He like fell away from faith and came back and all. That was it was good.
Yeah, it was a good episode of that podcast. Yeah,
for sure.
All right, how about you, Sean? What's your story?
So I grew up in a Christian household. Parents were Christian, whole family was Christian. Grew up going to church all the time. Went to Christian school, all that. I was surrounded by Christianity basically everywhere I looked. Like I didn't really know anything outside of Christianity for like
Nice.
Honestly, probably like the first 13, 14 years of my life. I didn't really like know. Yeah, I was pretty sheltered. Didn't really know anything. I was that youth group kid, like I said, and so when I was in youth group, I was like the kid who knew every answer and who sounded really good on the outside, and looked really good on the outside. And like on the inside, I definitely believed in God. I definitely believed Christianity was true. Looking back, I have no way of knowing like if I was actually saved then or not, but I mean, I know I am now, which is what really matters. But
Right.
back then, it definitely was more head knowledge back then than it was heart knowledge. I'll acknowledge that. And so going into early college, 18, 19 years old, I really I was struggling with like, is this something I really want to do my whole life? Is this something that I like? Do I believe it to the point where I'm going to let it determine like everything I do, everything I say? Like am I actually going to follow Christ or not? And I was living in some sin, and I didn't really care that much, so I was definitely lukewarm for sure. And then got to a point where I couldn't live like that anymore. The Lord basically broke me and had to humble me and be like, "You're not living this way anymore. Like it, like that's going to lead to death, and I'm not going to let you die." And so He broke me, He humbled me, and basically put me back on the narrow if I was ever off it. But yeah, that's essentially my story. That's the way I like to tell it. And yeah, so then second part of the question, how I got into music. So I grew up also in kind of a musical household. My dad always played guitar as a hobby. He would lead worship for like Bible studies and stuff at church. And he actually would lead worship for like the elementary kids, students, and whatnot. And so I got into playing drums when I was 12 years old. I don't play anymore, but I did play when I was a teenager, just for like some worship bands and chapel at school, that sort of stuff. And so I was always into music, but I never like could find the music I truly loved. I remember the first time I was exposed to rock music, especially Christian rock. I was 7 or 8 years old, and in Southern California, we had this Christian Christian radio music station. It was called The Fish, 95.9 The Fish.
Of course.
Wow.
I wouldn't expect any less.
Exactly. And all of their logos were like that fish you see on cars,
We have one with the same logo. It's called His Radio here.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
It's probably the same owner, honestly.
It could be.
So anyway, they used to do this huge Christian music one-day festival every year. It was called Fish Fest. And they would put it on at the local huge like amphitheater. I'm talking like 10, 15,000 people. Like it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so we went. It was the first time I was ever going to see live music. And we get there and we get to our seats, and this band called Cutlass comes on.
Yeah, Cutlass.
And I'm like 7 or 8. I've never heard distortion on an electric guitar before. I've never heard anyone yell. And I remember the singer John Micah comes out, and he kicks the water bottle into the crowd, and like 7-year-old me thought that was the hardest thing he'd seen in his life. And I'm like, you can do that? Like you can yell in your music? That's so cool. So I made my parents get me a Cutlass CD. Luckily for them, it was just Strong Tower, so they could at least listen to it too. But so I listened to that thing so much, and I really liked it. But unfortunately, like I didn't really have access to other music, or I guess means to find other music like that, I remember when Red came around in 2010, but again, like I'm a kid. I didn't have money to go. I didn't have like too much access to the internet, and I didn't know anybody who liked this kind of music either. So all that to say, it was about, I want to say 20, it wasn't until like 2011, 2012-ish, my freshman year in high school, my brother and his friends, my older brother and his friends got really into Red, Disciple, 1,000 Foot Crutch, Nine Lashes, Demon Hunter. Those were definitely like the big five.
Mm.
And my brother would play it. I hated it. I'd be like, dude, you got to turn that off. Like, I absolutely hate this. Like, please stop. And it's really funny looking back because we both laugh because we would like get in fights over how loud he would be blasting in the house and stuff. It's really funny.
Now you'd be like, you're the coolest brother ever.
Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, all of a sudden one day it just clicked. I don't know what it was, but it just clicked. I was hearing Red, I was hearing Skillet. I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. I like this. And so I'm like, okay, where do I go from here? So I just like download all their music, listen to it, and then over the course of the next 2 years just would get progressively heavier and heavier, you know. I got into Demon Hunter, and then I still couldn't get into like actual metal. Then I heard Dead Man by Wolves at the Gate in 2012 or 2013, and I'm like, okay, like I can get down with this. This is sweet. So Wolves at the Gate, I will always say Captors was my like gateway metalcore metal record.
Okay.
Still one of my all-time favorite albums to this day just because of that. And then from there got into like Memphis Mayfire, For Today, Phineas, Fit for a King, and then now I listen to everything.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, so this is 3 questions. We'll start with Chris.
Yeah.
So, number 1, what's your favorite live band you've seen? Number 2, what's the last live show you went to?
That one's easy.
And number 3, what's a band that you've never seen that you would love to see? Like, yeah.
Okay. Just because it's easy off the top of my head, for the second part, the last one I went to literally just this weekend. I just got back yesterday with my wife. We went to see 5 bands in Seattle. Headlining was Fallstar, but then also there was The Undertaking and Lightworker and Sight Received. Those would be the 4 bands that the scene would know anyways.
How was Lightworker? Was their show good? Like their stage and all? Stage show good?
Yeah, so this was like a really small venue. If anybody's been to Seattle, like one of the big metal venues is called El Corazon. And they have like a little room off to the side, like it's a little chunk of the building called the Fun House, and that's where this was. It's essentially a bar with like a little bit of open floor, and it's a small corner stage, like in the corner of the building. Like it's small time. So they have like 2 green lights on the stage, like that's it. No, no fanfare. Which is the type of stuff I like. I mean, I wouldn't mind the lights, but it's just very like intimate, small. Like you can be in the back of the venue and you still feel super close to the stage.
Sure.
You can see everything.
Been to many shows like that. Yes.
Yeah, and this was my wife's first ever metal show. And
nice.
she really enjoyed it. She was getting a little tired because we got up really early that day to travel down, and by the time The Undertaking came on, they were 4th out of the 5 bands. She was like mind blown. She was starting to fade, like getting tired, and then they came on. It was so awesome to see that. But so that was the last one I went to. The best one I've ever seen. Oh man. I mean, I haven't been able to see that many in comparison to probably a lot of you guys in the US, just because it's hard to. I have to travel a lot of the times, but let's see, like it would probably be at Creation Fest. I did get to see Sleeping Giant back at like Creation Northwest in 2010. Sleeping Giants up there. Oh man. Yeah, that's a hard one actually.
And then what's one band that you would love to see?
One that I would love to see, probably say near the top of the list right now would be Wolves at the Gate.
Okay.
Like when Sean was telling that story, when Wolves at the Gate signed to Solid State, they dropped the Herald's music video back in like I think it was in 2011.
Yeah.
And that day one, I remember watching that, and then I started showing friends at school, like during the lunch break, we would go on a computer, and I showed a couple people, and they were all like, metal. I was like mind blown at how good that song was.
Well, I will say they do put on a good show.
Yeah,
they do.
One day, hopefully. I think
my wife's one of her most favorite bands is Emery. So
Oh yeah,
I love Emery.
actually, I got to see Emery back then
Emery's
too.
good.
Emery's good.
They're
live.
actually they're originally locally from my area. They grew up here, but then they moved the band to Seattle when they got signed and all. But before we had kids, so this is a long time ago, I took my wife for a surprise birthday concert. She didn't know where we were going. We ended up going to Atlanta, and it was Emery, Under Oath, and Wolves at the Gate. It was an amazing show.
Oh, was that the Question tour, or
it may have been?
Tour?
I would have to look back at the year, but that sounds
show.
right. Yes.
Sheesh.
Awesome. All right, Sean, go ahead.
Okay. Best live performance. Shoot, I've seen a lot of bands live. I'll definitely say Thrice is definitely up there. They're not a Christian metal band,
right?
But,
definitely familiar again.
They're close.
Definitely. I can't go with Thrice because that's my answer to number 2. I just saw Thrice on the 20-year Artist in the Ambulance tour. I just saw that.
I guess you could have the same for
weeks
both.
ago. Yeah. No, Thrice is one of my all-time favorites. But let's see. So I just saw them. Actually, I'm going to a show this week. I'm seeing Haste the Day.
Nice.
With
Sleeper Haste the Day and Wolves of the Gate. That's my answer.
Somehow I don't think I've ever seen Haste the Day.
Dude, oh my goodness. Wow. Yo,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I'm not remembering seeing them right off. Unless I saw them on like a Solid State tour.
Maybe.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you, their old drummer is amazing, yo. I remember it might be their first show at Cornerstone or their second or something like that, but they were kind of a new band and they did Cornerstone. And I remember being in the audience. And I'm just like, oh, here we go, typical metalcore. So I'm listening to the set and I'm like, But the drummer just started, he was just snapping so hard. I actually went backstage and just filmed him, dude. It was just that good.
You're just rubbing it in our face that you got to go backstage. That's all right.
Right.
And see Haste the Day back then. Oh,
yeah. I know. I'm seeing him in 2023. So, but it'll be cool. Best band. Gosh, that's really tough. I'm going to come back to that one. I already answered number 2. Number 3, band that I want to see. Are we going with active bands or like bands that are...
Either one. Yeah.
I'll go active bands that I've never seen. I mean, I would love to see Holy Name. I know that they've only played one show.
Oh wow, I just saw Holy Name live.
Oh, you went to Furnace Fest?
Yes.
Oh, stop it! Be quiet.
Of course he did.
Yes, I'll see Haste the Day and Holy Name. How about that?
Oh my gosh!
I'll send you some footage. How about that?
Seen a lot of live
that
footage.
I would love to see. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I would love to see. No, I'm not a bit. the Christian metal group will crucify me because I'm not the biggest Striper guy.
So you know how that rolls too.
Oh, I know how it rolls. Gosh, what's a good?
He's not a very big like power metal.
Not huge into power metal.
We just got him into Theocracy.
I just finally.
Theocracy. I was about to say, don't tell people you don't like Theocracy.
I know.
I've been nagging him on that for years now.
I know.
It's so funny.
Band I would love to see. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to stay on theme in the Christian scene, and I've seen like almost every like major Christian metal band.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll go for Today. I never got to see them.
Oh,
unfortunately.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually did. That's crazy.
Oh wow!
You did.
What are the chances?
Yeah.
Chris,
I've seen Wolves at the Gate, and I'm seeing them in Haste Today this week.
Yeah, we'll take those 2 for the 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So where did you see for Today?
I saw them in Seattle at that El Corazon venue on their farewell tour, and that, overall show, I was new to concerts and I didn't do earplugs super well, so my hearing was kind of like during it because it was so loud and I wasn't used to it. But that show overall was probably the best thing I've ever seen. Like, so there's a smaller band called Torn. Yeah, so I saw them open up. They were the local Seattle opener in 2016.
I don't know that band.
And then
I said Corn.
No, Torn. So it's T-O.
I know. Yeah, I'm familiar with Torn. I'm totally being silly.
Okay. And then the other bands there was like My Epic, Norma Jean, Silent Planet.
That's the band that I haven't seen that I want to see. That's my answer.
Ooh, My Epic.
Oh
yeah.
Yo,
wait,
this is
My Epic or Norma Jean?
Norma
right.
Jean.
Continue with these questions. So let's talk about the podcast overall. Of course, we talked about you all getting started and stuff. When it came to distribution and all that other kind of stuff, I see you all are on like what Apple? You're on like Apple or whatever.
Apple
We're on like
Podcasts.
all the
All
streaming.
those.
That's
Yeah.
Spotify.
Yeah. So how did that come about? What inspired you all to go that route?
You mean like how did we come up with the podcast, or
how'd y'all come up with it? And then, like how did it expand for you all to be doing like the Apple and all that stuff?
How do you
Gotcha.
distribute it?
Oh, gotcha. Chris, you wanted I'm actually really interested to hear Chris's perspective how the podcast started. Because I don't remember. Someone asked me this the other day, how I started the podcast, and I legitimately don't remember.
I think it was more me than you.
I remember it being you, and I'm like, shoot, I don't remember.
Yeah, so essentially, because we got connected in just the beginning of lockdowns in 2020.
Yeah,
it was like March or April.
Yep.
That's when we really we had kind of messaged a couple times.
We knew each other through
Did y'all meet each other at a metal show and it was love at first sight, or what?
No. Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, actually we had been invited to like a group by Pastor Rob, if you guys know who he is. He just kind of got some Christian I don't know, what do you call them?
Christian metal
content creators
in
the metal scene, and invited a few of us to like just meet, and we talked like this over Zoom. This was like in March or April of 2020. I was laid off from my jobs at the time, so this was like fun to actually connect with people and actually talk about stuff that I enjoyed, because nobody around here does this.
Sure.
And so John and I don't know, we ended up talking a lot, and I feel like we became pretty good friends pretty quick. And I had dabbled in a podcast I had done initially for The Rock, but right after I had started for The Rock back in 2018, I got invited to help out with Christian Metal Source, and Peter runs that from India, and we became friends. We did all that, so I kind of did a Christian Metal Source podcast, but it was primarily we released it on Bandcamp. It wasn't like a widely distributed thing. I wouldn't really, looking back, it wasn't a real podcast. It was more of just like a radio show. I shared music and all that. It was fun, but I had stopped doing that, but I wanted to like do a legit podcast. I've been trying to do one with some friends here for years, more about like video games and stuff like that, but it just never came about. So I talked to Sean, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, why don't we do like the Kingdomcore podcast? Like, why don't we do this thing? He's like, hey, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I have no idea. Still don't have any idea.
Still don't.
But
nice.
Yeah.
Well, because it was like every time Chris and I would talk on the phone, it would end up becoming a podcast conversation.
Yeah, we're like,
we'd be on the phone for like 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like legitimately. Because we would just like talk about every Christian metal band that's ever existed.
Yeah. So that really sparked it.
Wait, I thought there was only 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it started. We were just like, let's do this. So we looked into it a bit. It took us a few months because you were looking for a job or something at the time.
Yeah.
And
I got married.
Okay, let's plan it. Yeah. You got married. You went on your honeymoon. Then we kind of came back around to it after a while. And so, yeah, we just looked into different things of how could we record it. So we actually have used a platform called Riverside.fm for a long time that records.
Riverside.
It records it's like a Zoom chat essentially, but it records the video and the audio separately from everybody, and it uploads it all separately. So I can download each individual video file, and then I put our little border on it. I edit it. I'm super
guys. Chris works so hard on our podcast.
That's awesome.
To make it look good and sound good. Like he'll downplay it, but he spends minimum 4 hours editing per episode. Minimum.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Super dedication.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, which is why it is as good as it is.
Yeah. So we just put a lot of work into it that way, and then we distribute it through Red Circle. Yeah. It's probably not the best way of doing it. Like there is other things, but it's free. and like we don't do ads and stuff in our podcast.
So does Red Circle distribute it to everything else? Is that how it works?
Yes.
So
it's like think of DistroKid, you know, if you're a band
for music. Yeah, it's almost like that. It was kind of confusing to set up at first because I didn't know anything about like RSS feeds and like how to do this to get it to work. Like I looked up multiple like YouTube guides and it kind of walks you through it a little bit, but it was a confusing process to set it up. And now I just go to the website, I upload the audio, name it, put the info in, put a cover art photo, and it essentially just you set the time and it'll distribute it everywhere. And then the YouTube version is actually like I'll record it or we'll edit it and I'll save it as an audio file, and that's how I do the audio for the Red Circle, and then we'll upload the video as a separate file to YouTube. And now YouTube's actually integrated a thing where you can make a playlist, an actual podcast, so it'll just detect it like when I put it in that playlist that it's an official podcast thing.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been fun. And then Red Circle also gives you all the analytics, and you can pay for like an upgraded version that goes even more in depth, but for what we need it for, it's just nice to see, you know, the numbers. We can find out who's listening to what, and you know, there's still people discovering our podcast for the first time and like downloading the first episode.
Yeah, I think like one of our top 5 most downloaded episodes is our first episode, which is crazy to me.
So then people just dropped off because they didn't like it.
Yeah. Huge disparity between that and our second.
What is the most listened to podcast you've done?
It's definitely the Holy Name episode with Tommy Green.
Okay.
The one from earlier this year. Because that was his like first public interview since he like converted to Eastern Orthodoxy. So he talked a lot about that.
Converted from what?
Well, he was like
very charismatic, Pentecostal,
very Pentecostal and charismatic.
Well, that's
so he talked
two polar opposites.
It is 2 polar opposites, which is why I think it's been such a popular one, because people are like, how did he go from Tommy from Sleeping Giant to now Eastern Orthodox? You know?
Yeah.
That's our most. Is that our most watched too?
Yeah, well,
the Brooke episode is one of our most
those
watched.
Two are pretty close on YouTube. It's actually different comparing the audio to the video stats. Our most listened to is the Holy Name episode. Our second is our intro episode 1, and then we had our eulogies interview with Steve Cabucci for Wolves of the Gate, and then right behind that is Hellbent by Brooke Reeves.
I thought so.
And then
Phineas number 5.
No, Becoming the Archetype.
Oh, no kidding! I didn't realize that was that popular.
Yeah. Impending Doom is so good. Like for that style of music. And I'll tell you, I didn't know Holy Name was Orthodox until like a month ago or whatever it came up. I had no idea, but I love that album. I got it on vinyl.
So good.
I listened to it several times when I
what do you think of the live live take that they did for the initiation thing?
I mean, it was good.
I almost prefer that mix to the full album. It's crazy.
Sure. So, and then my next question was, what is the not the most listened to, but what's your favorite one that you've done?
Ooh,
I feel like almost every episode we're like, we'll end it, and then Sean and I are like, that's our new favorite episode, every time.
But I'll say our most current one, our interview with Leroy. War of Ages. That was a really special interview.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that a lot. I'd say most fun interview. I'm gonna go with like kind of a wild card that people wouldn't guess, but one of the most fun conversations we've had for me was when we interviewed Elisha Mullins for More of Ages.
Yeah.
And Elisha, he's also been in Hill to Die Upon and The Burial.
Oh, the drummer,
Flesh
right?
Killer. No, he's the he's
guitarist, singer.
He
does even some of the Queen vocals in War of Ages now.
But then War of Ages, their drummer was in a metal.
Their drummer was also in The Burial. Yes,
that's okay. That's what I was thinking.
He was in
Caleb and Elisha were in The Burial together.
Caleb and Elijah.
Yeah, but I really that was a really fun episode because we got to do kind of like it's kind of the first and only we've done almost like a biography of someone who's just been in the Christian metal scene for so long. And we had him just start from when he got into metal and then go through like what his career looked like in each band, and that was a really fun conversation.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna say Trevor Tyson.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah, you know, I was gonna say he's doing lead vocals for Extol now too. Whenever they do stuff live.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Elisha. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's crazy.
What about you, Chris? What's your favorite episode we've done?
I mean, yeah, I think most recently, definitely the Leroy episode. Like as soon as we got off the call with him, Sean and I were just like, wow, like that was a great episode. I think overall, just the way the conversation went. But
nice.
Looking through here, probably one of my favorites. Again, probably not one that people would assume necessarily. James and John Micah from Cutlass, like that was a full circle moment.
That was a really fun one.
To go back to what Sean was saying earlier with the Cutlass stuff, like they were actually my parents had started buying me CDs, and Reliant K 5 Scores 7 years ago was my first ever CD that I owned, and that kind of started. Like I have a massive collection, and the Cutlass self-titled was the first ever one. Like my mom gave me for the Christian bookstores here, that you would buy 5 and you would collect a little sticker and you would get a CD for free. Like you could trade them for whatever you want. So
oh god, yes.
I had the 5 stickers and it was my choice. I could get whatever I wanted, and I chose the self-titled Cutlass album, and definitely stuck with them for so many years. And then I kind of fell off when I got into metal, and then they went more worship for a lot of their stuff. I kind of fell off a bit, but being able to talk to them, that was like a full circle moment. That's cool. So
definitely.
So a fun fact about Cutlass, just because we're on the subject, Yamaha, the motorcycle company, were the first. So Cutlass was the first band that they had ever sponsored.
Oh wow,
really?
Yeah.
Wait, and it was the motorcycle thing versus like the music side, like because Yamaha,
I'm pretty sure it's the same company that owns both.
Is it the same company?
It may be, but I think it was the actual motor company.
Oh, interesting.
They had never sponsored music before, and
That's
Cutlass
funny.
was the first
Wow.
one. Yeah, I'm full of useless knowledge.
Right. It's all good. No worries. All right, well, cool. I guess I'll ask next. I know you all talked about some of your favorite episodes. Let's talk about controversial episodes. And then I'll also ask as far as subject matter, do you all kind of stick to music, or have you like just talk about other stuff also?
And Christian music only, and
right, all that.
I
mean, some bands that just straight up, they're like, we don't know any Christian music, so when we ask them what their favorite stuff is, they'll just be like, oh, it's this band and this band. I'm like, I've never heard of them. But,
no, like I have no issue talking about like things that aren't Christian music on the podcast, because I listen to plenty of non-Christian music as well myself. But like as far as the guests go, we keep it like guests that are in Christian metal bands, you know.
Nice.
I don't think we have like, if I'm going to say controversial, I'm going to say like the Holy Name episode was kind of controversial just because so many people don't really know anything about Orthodoxy, and it really was kind of just like it was kind of jarring for a lot of people hearing that Tommy had become Orthodox and just trying to figure out what that all entails, you know, and hearing the way he got there, all the pain, grief, and death he had to experience in his own personal life. I know it was definitely a very I don't want to say the word triggering for some people, but it was definitely a heavy episode, wouldn't you say, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was one of those things that kind of caught people by surprise, because there were some people that listened to Holy Name and like didn't really know, like they knew that it was Tommy Green, but they, you know, their music isn't listening to the lyrics, like it's a lot of it's just worship music. Like it's not really any different.
Exactly.
But like hearing his story, and for people who really followed him back in the Sleeping Giant days to now, and they know that difference between like the theological stances and stuff, it's definitely like a pretty big distance. I would say one of our controversial episodes, it was more of a fun, dumb episode, but somehow people didn't understand it, and the most comments we've ever had was the Christian metal album fantasy draft we did with all.
Oh my gosh, that was dude. That was supposed to be fun. People got so offended at that.
They're like, "Where's this one and this one?" I'm like, "Guys, we
so have you guys ever like listened to like fantasy draft? Like, I know the Labeled podcast has done like fantasy
they
draft.
do.
Yeah, we kind of.
So we did one with Gary and Tyler at the All Consuming podcast.
Yep,
we had them come on and we did Christian metal fantasy draft. So we basically. We had 5 genres. We did metalcore, hardcore, post-hardcore, rock, and deathcore.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Yeah. And everyone thought it was like you picking your fate. It's like supposed to be. A lot of people, let's just say, have never played fantasy football before. So people thought it was like us picking our all-time favorites, and people got so offended that we weren't picking their favorite albums.
They didn't understand it. Yeah,
they're like, "Where's Demon Hunter?" or something. I don't even know who the
Demon
big band
Hunter
didn't get picked.
They're like, "That band's not post-hardcore."
It does not have to be included in every conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
And even just being a host, I feel like it would have been cheating if I won somehow. So I was like, I'm going to go with a deep cut here, and hopefully some people appreciate it. But I'm understanding
Look
that
at Chris making excuses for why he lost.
All right, what's your favorite deathcore album? Oh, it's got to be something by Skillet. Let's see.
Right. Or Theocracy.
Tyler was like, I only know one deathcore band or whatever. Like, it was a fun episode, but it was definitely like, I feel like a big chunk of the audience didn't understand what was going on. So the amount of
we tried our best to explain it too.
Yeah, I listened to that. That's all right.
We'll have to do it again, and then we'll see.
It was a fun episode, though. I had a lot of fun recording that.
Yeah, All Consuming Podcast is great. I've been listening to that one for a while. We interviewed them a while back as well. So what are your top 2 or 3 podcasts that y'all like to listen to for either information or maybe like getting ideas?
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit it. I'm not the biggest podcast guy, but there are podcasts I listen to on occasion. All Consuming Podcast is definitely one of them. I stagger out my listens. I'll wait for like 2 or 3 episodes of a podcast I like to drop so I could listen to all of them at once, That's kind of how I consume content. I find the content creators I like, and then I wait a month, and then I just binge everything they've done in like a week,
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely that. The Labeled podcast I don't listen to every episode of, but anytime they have like guests that I really enjoy, I definitely listen to that.
Especially the early, like when the Labeled podcast,
those were great.
The early stuff where it was very focused on telling the story of Tooth and Nail in the history.
Those were much better.
It was so good, and it's still really good. It's just different now. But
have you heard Coffee and Hardcore? You heard that one?
I don't know if I've heard that.
They do a lot. They do a lot of bands that I've never heard, but they have some really good, like Haste Today, and they have different bands.
Well, that's cool. I like coffee and I like hardcore, so
that's what it's about.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
do they talk about coffee on it?
They do.
Is that like a subject matter?
So people send them coffee, and they So they interview a band, and then they review the coffee.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
So
how do I get on
that? One of my friends at a local coffee shop here got in touch with him, and he's on one of the early episodes.
Oh, nice.
That might have been how I forgot. I can't remember if I found out about it or I don't know. He was on it, but
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
One of the best podcasts I've ever listened to, just production wise, the whole story, like it actually ended, which was cool, like after like 20 episodes or whatever it was the rise and fall of Mars Hill. Like, I
thought you were gonna say that
was actually like a good
I listened to the whole thing myself.
It was
interesting.
I can't get myself to listen to
like
it.
I was
like, I don't want to be so upset.
Well, I was familiar with Mars Hill and all that, but I didn't really follow it like some people did. So that podcast was very
it's really informative. There's so much stuff there that, like, regardless of the drama, like just hearing people's stories and how that all affected them was really interesting. But just a random couple other ones that we could give a shout out to, like obviously the Labeled podcast is great, but just a couple smaller ones, like Heavy Worship Nation podcast is great. All Consuming Podcast, obviously. Backstage with Mothership.
Oh, I listen to that. Yep.
And Trevor Talks. Those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, we're gonna be interviewing Trevor at some point.
Oh, that'll be fun. I love Trevor. Good buddy.
Well, get ready. Be prepared for that.
Be prepared.
You hear that, Jay?
Yes, I hear it. Let's go.
Oh, man.
Definitely go.
You have to keep him reined in a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you brought up something earlier. We were talking about the acceptance of like metal in the Christian community. And I know that I think about you definitely made a parallel to hip hop, and I thought about me and Jimmy. We both have had some kind of history with Christian hip hop. Jimmy as a promoter.
I'm a rap
right. Yeah, me as a guy that like just kind of plays. I'm a session musician basically.
Okay.
I'm starting to do more stuff now, but most of my career has been session musician.
Jay just dropped an album.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We'll get to that. Like,
okay.
That's over. I won't promote it here necessarily right now, but maybe I'll come on your show and be like, yo, I'll tell y'all all about the juicy details or something. But no, it's like, but yeah, I think about those parallels. Like Christian hip hop, actually, it's interesting because it's in a place now. Like Christian metal scene seems to be like, what do you call it? Just really growing again. I think that, like when
it's on the rise.
Like so for example, when the streaming era happened, I mean, Christian hip hop actually kind of died. Really, like it died. There's like a few bands and a few groups and singers that like do solo stuff, but yeah, overall,
I feel like CHH is all either it's Rapzilla or it's Rise.
Right, yeah, it's pretty.
It's one of the two.
There's not much else, right? Yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely been a big. There was a lot of controversy, and I think that also killed a lot of Christian hip hop. It was like a lot of the controversy. I think about those parallels because there are so many between both of those communities, and I think that's why a lot of those people got along, especially in the old school Christian hip hop and Christian metal people. They were like all on each other's albums and all this other kind of stuff. We'll see what happens next, right? But as far as Christian metal and their controversies, I would say one of them is, just like you were saying earlier, like, can this music even be accepted in the church? And then also with so many religions and our denominations and stuff, some people feel like if it's not talking about this, then it's not Christian, or like all the other kind of stuff.
You got to have your Jesus beats per minute.
Oh yeah, you got to have Jesus beats per minute, and also you have to I guess vote a certain way, or just whatever else. It's like everybody has their own, I guess, criteria. But in your opinion, like, what have you seen as far as we talk about personal controversies as far as show controversies, but like controversies within the Christian metal scene and stuff, and things that people have kind of I guess being critical about the Christian metal community from the outside and from the inside.
I think from the outside, I feel like it was getting better, but it's probably always been the same where it's just people don't get it. It's aggressive, it's loud, but and then you have the same argument to those people all the time where it's like, well, like, it's the Bible doesn't say specifically what genre of music you have to do, like, to worship God.
Right.
But then within, it's the same arguments where it's like, oh, this isn't talking about Jesus enough, or and I think I've even just in the last few years, I've kind of gone up and down in opinions on certain things. I feel like I've almost loosened up a little bit in the last year or so, where I was like super like, if the message wasn't there at all, I wouldn't even but
that comes with getting older and wiser, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. But now, I think I see the different perspectives from all the different bands where they, it's either a missional thing or it's not. They might just be like, oh, well, we're Christians in a band. We're just wanting to play rock and roll. Like, there's that argument. And then there's the argument, well, it's like, well, we should be doing this for the Lord. So then, we make everything that. And you got like that divide of the two different mentalities. And I'm like, well, like I can see it as both and where it's like, it doesn't. Every song obviously isn't going to be about Jesus. I mean, I like it when a band is either open about their beliefs in either way, or you can see the message in the overall thing. Like, even if they have a song that's super dark, maybe some that don't even offer hope in the whole song. But if you listen to the whole piece of art, the whole album, then I like it when it ends in some sort of like, there's hope. And it'd be nice if they mentioned something specific about it, but I can see it from both arguments. But I almost don't think this conversation is ever going to end.
Yeah, like, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, Chris, like, it's never going to stop. Like, as Kingdomcore keeps growing on Instagram at the rapid pace that it has recently, the algorithm is pushing it out into more and more of the Christians who don't know Christian metal exists and who aren't for it. And so I'm getting a lot of comments recently over the past few months that are just like, this is demonic, this is satanic, this is chaotic, like this does not worship the Lord. One thing that like 90% of them have in common is that they're all KJV only, which is really funny to me. So it's like, if you can't, if you're only stuck on one translation of scripture, then obviously you're only going to be stuck on one genre of music. But it's really interesting. But I guess from the inside with my experience, I'd say that like there's a few different ways for a Christian metal band to generate controversy, I guess. One of them is definitely going to be language. That's going to be the first one.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as anybody lets out one curse word in an interview, they're immediately like canceled by the Christian metal scene. And I'm not trying to excuse cursing. Obviously, we're supposed to honor the Lord with our speech. I'm not perfect. I curse sometimes, like, gasp, everyone listening who thought I was perfect.
I know.
But I definitely think there's, like, when you're in a Christian metal band, I don't believe you should be placed on a platform. Unfortunately, just because of human nature, you are put on a pedestal.
Yes. Well, so they're literally on a platform.
They are on a platform. You're right. Yeah. Gosh.
But being extra loud. Listen to me.
Yeah. No, but like, what I'm trying to say is, like, these are humans, and let's not elevate them. Let's not put our faith in them, because they are human. They mess up. They sin. Our faith is in God. And that's what you hear from a lot of the bands who fell away, is that they saw everyone in the Christian metal scene or the fans be judgmental and be hypocritical, and you realize their faith was never in Christ. Their faith was in man.
Yeah. Plus all the people not in the scene, like all the people in church, just being like, man, this is evil.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is language is definitely one that like, there's no room for nuance, there's no room for grace. I don't see grace with sin. As brothers and sisters in Christ, when a brother or sister stumbles or falls, there has to be grace. There just has to. There's no condemnation. You can have judgment, like, yes, like judge them in the way in which hopefully, like, it'll bring them back, right. And hopefully you're pure in your own judgment, because with the same judgment that you judge others, you will be judged accordingly. So hopefully if someone slips up in their words and you're going to condemn them, then your speech better be perfect. Let me just say.
Yeah, but that argument's been around forever, and got Ken growling. And I mean, it even happens within the Christian metal group in our Facebook
all the time.
But you got to realize there's people literally from all over the world, all different walks of life, all different denominations, including Catholic and whatever else. and you do have your KJV only, and you do have all these. So all that topic's always going to be there. But I always go back to, are we putting God in a box? Can God not use? Because if I've been in Christian metal long enough that I feel like I can defend that really well. God can do anything, right? So just to wrap this up, hey, I was just looking, and Kingdomcore is over 58,000 followers on Instagram.
Wow, amazing.
I will put a link to everything here on this video. Y'all go follow that. It's going to be some good information.
Make sure to follow For the Rock as well. Chris
For the Rock, absolutely. We'll put all those links on there for sure. And just the last thing is, as a ministry, Christian Metal Group is a Facebook group, but we are a ministry. We support other people who support bands that promote the gospel. That's really because we never know what God can use and how it can work, right? And we have our website and all that where we help promote different bands. So how can we in the Christian metal community help support Kingdomcore? What can we do for you?
It's a great question. Definitely just
like, comment, and subscribe. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll say it tongue in cheek after that. Like, comment, and subscribe. Like, honestly, that really helps more than you realize. I know it's become such a joke to just say that after anything. But it really does make a difference. I'd say one thing that is undervalued is if you follow Chris and I, if we post a band, go follow the freaking band. Please follow the bands, because we're not doing it for us. We're doing it to make these guys who are trying to like proclaim the gospel. We're trying to give them a platform to do.
That's good. Yeah.
And so please go follow the bands, go interact with them, because they need that. They need all of that engagement as well, because whenever they're promoting new music, dropping merch, you're not going to see it, and you're not going to be able to support them if you're not following them.
I mean, and that's right in line with we're promoting you, you're promoting them. It all works together, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Nice.
Exactly.
Awesome, man. Well,
what about you, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm in line with that. Like, just the way the algorithm works these days. Like, if you watch the whole thing, like watch more of it.
Watch time is huge.
Save it, share it, do all that, and when those stats go up higher, it gets pushed out to more people, and a lot of the times that could be people that don't know this type of music, but like maybe don't even know Jesus, and then then they discover more like it, and then it's a thing that it snowballs. So definitely a lot of that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate y'all coming on here. Hopefully, we can get y'all some more listeners, and then y'all can get some bands some more listeners, right? So awesome, man. It's been great.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
We love having y'all as a ministry partner and everything. Anything else, Jay?
Yo, God bless you all. I guess as we leave, give me just fill in the blank. And this will be our sign off. God is. Go for it. Fill in the blank.
Good.
Everything.
Good. Yeah. Love it.
Amazing.
And all the time.
Rock out.
Amen.